The female loneliness epidemic. This might sound like I'm trying to create some buzzword or grasp at something that doesn't really exist. And for that reason, I actually think we are proving my point, right? That the female loneliness is a real thing that is under-discussed and deserves its own sort of special attention. Oftentimes when we hear a loneliness epidemic, we often hear this in relation to men, or we hear it more broadly in relation to Gen Z. Now, I feel like I was introduced to the concept of a loneliness epidemic mainly in the comment section of feminist content creators, talking about making feminist points, talking about feminism, talking about women's rights, talking about the ways in which men oppress us. And there's men in the comment section saying, why are you guys always talking about, feminism and blah, 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 and these your guys' feminist points and not paying attention to the fact that men have a loneliness crisis going on. Now, here's my thing. There is generally a loneliness crisis happening. And I do think that breaking it down by sex is not always productive, but sometimes can lead to useful conversations surrounding the ways in which men and women engage with their own loneliness, the way that it manifests for them, and the certain biases that we have around surrounding boys and girls and men and women's loneliness, right? So oftentimes men will bring up the male loneliness epidemic. And it sounds like it's just a thinly veiled attempt to silence feminist points and also try to get women to cure their loneliness, right? Like men often bring up their loneliness as a means of being it's very much in alignment with incel ideology. That's like, oh, well, I'm lonely as a man because women aren't giving me attention because women have too high of a standard, blah, 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 whatever. And that's worthy of its own conversation, but I'm here for the girls, okay? We're gonna talk about the female loneliness epidemic, which very much exists. I felt like I was going crazy. I felt like I was going genuinely insane, reflecting on the loneliness epidemic and reflecting on my own experience with loneliness. I'm not unique. I'm very much a part of the data here surrounding loneliness. That I am someone who have really struggled with having and maintaining deep, emotionally intimate friendships, and especially having those last large amounts of time. That's something I've really struggled. I might be an anomaly in some cases in that I was homeschooled, which I do think might have played a role definitely played a role in my experience of loneliness. However, when we're talking broadly about the factors that are playing a role in Gen Z's difficulty around loneliness, we're talking about social media, we're talking about COVID happening during formative years, we're talking about our economic crisis and how, people are working all of the time, like all of these different factors that play a role in our loneliness, like that is something that we're all suffering under, and of course something that has impacted me. And I felt like when I was going through my loneliness and when I was really struggling to be why am I having a hard time connecting with people? Why am I having a hard time forming these relationships? I felt like I was the only person that was going through this. Genuinely, I'm not even saying this to try and get sympathy points. I truly, honest to God, this was my thought process. I remember maybe when I turned 18, getting on Bumble BFF, right, which is a dating app, but then they have a BFF version so you can make friends on the dating app or whatever. So it's designed just for friendship. I got a Bumble BFF and I must have been 18 or 19 at the time. I probably was looking for other 18, 19, probably max 20-year-olds at the time. I ran out of people probably within not even an hour of swiping. I ran out of people in my age range so quickly, and everybody that was on there was college students that lived very far away from me. And it just confirmed this thought that I had in my head that I was I am the only lonely girl. Isn't there a Justin Bieber song, One Less Lonely Girl? I am still very much one of the lonely girls in the world, okay? I was sitting there, how am I the only person on this app who's looking for friendship, who, isn't, I don't know, I guess I thought, it makes sense if you're, at a university or whatever, but I was I'm not attending some big university. I am just one girl out in the world, roaming around, who's just trying to find my community, and especially considering, my age, right? And it made me start to have this thought process that, oh, we don't assume that girls who are 18, 19, 20 years old are struggling with making friends. There is, because I remember going over to the dating side, which actually that kind of brings me into a different point. But we just wrap up that thought. We assume that if you are a young girl, that you're not struggling with making friends. This is not a resource that you need. When we look at the lack of resources, I've also been learning about my attachment style recently, and I have realized that I have an avoidant attachment style. So I've been trying to learn how to cure my avoidant attachment style, how to work on it in relationship to making friends, and being how my avoidant attachment style shows up in friendships. Babe, there is no plane. There is no house. There are no resources surrounding how to attach, how to apply avoidant or your attachment style, an understanding of your attachment style to your friendships. People just don't gaff. If you're going to talk about attachment styles, we're going to talk about romance, right? Because when I went over to the dating side of Bumble, when I looked at dating matchmaking sites, whatever, there's a bunch of people in my age. There's clearly no problem. Like, we have no issue putting a bunch of infrastructure around friendship, but then for some reason this completely dissolves into thin air the second that we start talking about friendship. And I started to essentially formulate this understanding that, especially thinking about this in conjunction with the fact that the male loneliness epidemic exists, and men will always bring this up as a means of like trying to get women, like I said earlier, to get us to date them, get us to give them our time and attention, essentially blaming us for like not being present enough in their lives or whatever, and that's the reason why they're lonely, not really considering the fact that they can be friends with each other, or not considering the ways in which men's friendships tends to be very devoid of emotional intimacy, which is why their friendships are not as satisfying, etc., etc. Thinking about all of that together gave me the conclusion that we basically think that women are better at making friends, right? Like, men are going to women for their community needs, right? Women in general are the community builders. Like, this is not wrong, right? You know, I'm always looking at my mom. My mom is always planning baby showers. She's always planning graduation parties. She's always planning, weddings. Like, she's always helping in our broader community, helping people, bringing people together, cooking, throwing parties, blah, blah, blah. Women are the community builders. That is true. But then it creates this assumption that like women can't feel lonely, that young girls, and the way that girls get socialized to really be thinking a lot about other people's emotional needs, where other people are at, how you can support people, how you can show up in community with one another. The fact that women are punished really more so if they're not being social enough, right? Like, if a girl, God forbid, I remember one time in class, I was like in like the 8th grade, I was just like sitting in the back. I was just like having a bit of a quiet day, just wasn't in a super like chirpy mood. I had people coming up to me asking me if I was sick, right? They were like, oh, there must be something wrong with you. Like, we side-eye women who are shy, who are a little bit introverted, who are not like super social and bubbly and nice to people all of the time, right? That B word, we be throwing it around if a girl just looks at us the wrong way, right? We really punish women for not being social. So we tend to have this assumption then that women must be very good at being social, must not have any social problems, must be really good at this, and that if a woman is social, it must be her fault, right? And so I was looking at this world and I was like, if you are a girl who's feeling lonely, it feels like you're completely alone, and it also feels like there's absolutely no infrastructure to help aid that problem. To be like, how do we help young girls make friends? How do we help them realize that they are not alone in their loneliness, and say that this is something that's happening, and put things in place to try and remedy that problem? Essentially, with what I wanted to talk about today is the fact that this loneliness epidemic amongst women does exist, and to address some of the things getting in the way of us being able to acknowledge the reality of this female loneliness epidemic, of the fact that girls are not in community the way that we might assume, right? And as I've been trying to figure out, like how to remedy this problem, I think, this is where some of the differences, I guess, between men and women start to show up, considering like I, of course, have been like I said, I was learning about my attachment style and trying to see, like, use that as a framework for me to better understand some of my like self-destructive tendencies when it comes to friendships and how I can start to remedy that. Like the fact that I am looking into like attachment theory and finding whatever resources that I can online, even if it's going to be mainly centered around romance, like the fact that I'm looking for those things and then figuring out how I can apply that to my friendship, to my friendship life, I feel like that's already kind of taking a step that men generally don't, or men like try to make that women's labor, of like, you're going to be the psychologist, you're going to be the one to try and understand how to remedy the problem, and then you'll just like offer the solutions to other people. I feel like that's the assumption that a lot of people have, and like taking the initiative to support yourself, taking that initiative to do what it is you can as a woman to support yourself and in no longer feeling lonely. That is something that I think like women in general might be more likely to do. However, I don't think that that's fair. I don't think it's fair that we have to just kind of like DIY your own, I don't know, like way of finding your own spaces where people are talking about the fact that like, yes, girls can be lonely, and then also trying to find the solutions to fixing your social life. Now, I'm not obviously saying, of course, that it's any other person's problem that you're lonely, or that it's any other person's problem to fix your loneliness. Of course, at the same, you at some point have to take initiative and like apply different decisions and whatever in order to like change your life. However, like it was just frustrating to me, I guess, to realize that like, oh, like the steps that I am willing to take, like this is the difference between the male loneliness epidemic and the female loneliness epidemic, is the fact that like when women do have the courage to get online and talk about being lonely, like we're not getting online to talk about it so that we can like blame men. But then like when we do have that courage, like it does usually turn into us at least trying to find some resources on how to solve the problem. And I guess what I found to be really disheartening, especially since as I've been talking about it on TikTok, I'm getting more people telling me like, oh, I definitely also feel lonely. Like this is something that I really relate to. But like as I was starting to look, the World Wide Web is supposed to give me all the resources in the world that I could ever need, and I'm supposed to be able to find any person with any problem and any solution. And your girl has been struggling. So I feel bad because I don't really have a conclusion to this video as far as like, here is the solution. Here's the thing that we do. Here's the way that we solve this problem. Like here is how you get yourself to deprioritize romance or to in favor of focusing on friendship, blah blah blah. Here's the book, here is the content creator. Like, I don't really have that. I'm very open to if anyone else has those resources, but really with my goal with this video is to say, hey, the girls are lonely. This is very much a thing going on, and to illuminate some of the reasons why we tend to be not as open to that possibility and not as open to acknowledging that that is a reality that girls are going through. So there we go. Please comment other video ideas that you would like me to just get on here and yap about. I am Paris Mondois. I'm here. I'm back on YouTube. This might be going up as a podcast post. Who knows? Who knows? We might get fun. That might be something fun and exciting happening. But thank you so much for tuning in.
So random. I was just editing this video, but I forgot to mention that a part of us fixing this whole female loneliness epidemic, of course, is going to be women coming together and hanging out and being with one another. And I'm really excited to announce that I'm partnering with WorldPackers, and I'm going to be taking a trip with them to Mexico in September. So if you wanted to join me, hang out, have a girls trip to Mexico in September with me and with some other people from my audience, that would be super awesome. So there's going to be a link down below where you can sign up to get into the WhatsApp group and start getting more information.